Hi, my name is Judy and I'm the City Stitcher, and welcome to my Flosstube channel. Today is Sunday, September the 26th, and it is a mostly sunny day. There was some cloud cover this morning, but it seems to have burned off, so we're at the sunny portion of the day, which means, as usual, the sunroom is quite a lovely room for me to be in. And always when it's sunny, it means that, you know, this is the best lighting. But we are also at that point in the year where the movement of the sun is changing, and so it's skewing a little weird. So we're exactly back where we were last week, where I'm expecting that the sun's going to do a couple of odd things as I'm showing things, but sunny is better than not sunny. Anyway, this is a channel about cross-stitching and the stitching that I've done this week. So if you are a new viewer, thank you for stopping by and spending some time with me. And if you are a returning viewer, thank you so much for coming back and spending some time with me, because you know what you're pretty much going to be looking at for the next little bit, more or less. So just a little bit about the comments from last week. As always, I truly appreciate the comments that come in on the videos, comments, questions, things you'd like me to talk about. Always happy to have those. So Carol had commented that she appreciates when I talk about designers and what I see about them, and thank you for that. And part of my reason when I do those focus on specific designers is particularly for a couple of reasons. One, I acknowledge that there are lots of people out there who don't necessarily have access to a brick and mortar shop. So, you know, when I'm talking about what it's like to stitch certain things and what I see in them, you know, again, those are my personal experiences and my personal views. So I'm glad that you're finding them helpful. Two, I always like digging through the stash. One, because it's just fun digging through the stash. And two, you know, as people comment periodically on the videos, that when I go digging through the stash, I've got some old charts. So when everybody's doing all the new stuff and working on them, and they may be working on something from a particular designer that's newer than that, but if you're new into stitching or newly back into stitching, there might be some older charts that you haven't seen. So yeah, it's always fun for me when I get to do a designer and go, here's some of the stuff sitting in my stash taunting me about needing to be stitched imminently. So and again, somebody had commented about they loved how organized I am. I'm really glad that you think I'm organized. Don't always believe what you see in the videos. So yes, it's true that I have a 5-year stitching plan, always subject to change. I wouldn't say that everything is necessarily organized, and you're going to see that when you get to the stash acquisitions part of this particular episode. Anyway, and again, thanks for the comments on the temperature tree. Several of you were working on them. A couple of you went out and managed, I hope using the coupon code, managed to get a couple of her charts. Yeah, I'm really enjoying working on the temperature tree, and we'll get to that. The one comment that came in was someone specifically, so they were doing the temperature garden, which is the flowers, and outlined her birthday on that. And so that sent me down a whole tangent saying, ooh, maybe, you know, you could outline, you know, outline Christmas Day. Wait for it. Like in acrylic, in a metallic. I know, I said it. Maybe it's a petite treasure braid, anyway, whatever. But, you know, specific, you know, so your birthday, your anniversary, you know, other birthdays that are meaningful to you that particular year, or, you know, Christmas, Easter, Valentine's Day, whatever. It's got me thinking. Now, I haven't done anything about it, but it's got me thinking. So I don't know. We'll check back as we work our way through that temperature tree about what I'm actually going to do, whether I'm going to start outlining certain leaves and metallics and things. I don't know. It's got me thinking. So again, thanks for the comment, because you've got me thinking. I don't know what the answer is, and I don't know what the decision is, but it certainly got me thinking, and I always like that. So a couple of you commented on your approach to Stoney Creeks with, you know, the finickies, and generally I would say the comments coming in is that you approach it like I do. So at least I know I'm not alone in my approach. And again, George Snow, so thank you so much for coming back in, who commented that really that they treat them like they do a HAID, which stands for Heaven and Earth Designs, which are full coverage pieces, and that they sort of do a 10 by 10 block. And I think that's really great when you've got like, so those village scenes that seasonal villages that I showed, because you've got those buildings, and I could see that that would work there. Mine, for the particular design I'm working on, it's a little more finicky because it isn't quite so much blocks, because it's sort of these trailing floral things, and anyway, whatever. So good to know that my approach is very similar, so that was great. So yeah, that's just how a Stoney Creek goes. And again, I totally acknowledge that Stoney Creek is not for everybody because of the shading and the color changes, and you know, one stitch, two stitch, one stitch, two stitch drives people nuts when you're changing colors that frequently. For me, and again, those areas, I don't necessarily love them, but I love how they look at the end. And to me, when you get to the end, that's where you go like, ugh, I love the end product. It's kind of like me in cooking. I don't necessarily love cooking, but I really enjoy the food at the end. Anyway, so that's me. And Joanne Jones, you're very welcome. You know that part of the reason why you watch me is because you and I have some similar tastes, and yes, that I'm enabling you to do some things that you haven't seen before. I don't know if that's necessarily going to be the case this particular week, but you know, you're very welcome for the last 2 episodes of enabling. Anyway, with that, yeah, I'm kind of looking forward to the Stashquisitions because it's been an interesting week on a variety of fronts. Anyway, as you can tell, the topic for this week is I have a fully finished object. Now, I'm not actually going to haul it out. It's all being done via pictures and video, which we're going to tack on to the very end. You all can guess what that's going to be, and we'll talk about that when we get there. So with that, let's start with what have I been stitching this week? So as you all know, I've been working on, I'm going to start with Stoney Creek again. So Tapestry of Life, which is my September focus piece. Now, I didn't get quite as much stitching accomplished as I had hoped, which that seems to be the song of my week, the story of my week, story of my life. Anyway, but I am happy with how it's coming along. See, we've got that weird lighting going on again. There we go. So, yeah, see. All right, let's do this. So what did I get accomplished this week? So I got this gray border here finished. The blank spots that you see in here are beads. So I did all of this. So you'll be happy to know that there's 4 colors of DMC that make up each one of those motifs. And then I'm working on these sort of, I don't know, the motifs that go in between those star-shaped florally thingies. Anyway, I don't know what to call them. I was hoping to have, so there's these blue squares in the center, which are complete, and then there's green on either side, and there's 3 colors of green, 4 stitches each. I was hoping to have 2 colors of the green done, and I didn't get it done. So I only have 1 color done, but I've done the 1 color, so there's 2 more colors of green to go in there, plus a bead, which again, I won't do the beading until the end. And around these star-shaped things, it's actually done in Krynic. Now, I'm not going to do that right now because, as you can tell, I didn't do a good job ironing my linen for this one, and I don't like ironing Krynic. So I'm going to wait to put the Krynic in until I've gotten, so a long time from now, till I've gotten up to the top of this and I'm working back down on the borders. So as I come back down to do the borders, that's when I will fill in the Krynic. So yeah, so two more colors of green in here is what I'm going to start with. Then I'm back on lettering. So again, when I'm doing the lettering, there are some green that joins up top, alternating between top and bottom on these particular things, which are the annoying ones again. So 5 stitches with a total of 4 colors. So my goal is that, you know, same thing, I'll do 1 strand of lettering up here and then work on the annoying bit down here and do 1 strand of lettering up here and come. And so this should hopefully fill in quite decently. But then again, as I come up the sides, there's more of that. Right, so all of this green, you know, coming up here is really very reminiscent of these little green joiner things, right? So quite similar to down here. So again, a lot of 5 different colors with a few stitches of each color as I'm going up. So check back next week and see how I do with that. Yeah, so we're into the last week of September. Actually, less than a week. So 5 days left. So we'll see how much of the words that I get done. So there, I may put off this and just try to get the rest of the words done. Because if I got the rest of the words done, then I'd really be almost up here to the top. And again, this section will be annoying as I'll get out for when I pick it up next. But then after that, then I'm into the border and working my way down. So this one I won't do until I come down here because the words are easy. And by then I'll be going, I'm in the home stretch. This will be easy and this looks super fun to do. So that's my overall plan. Now, yeah, check back a week from now and see how I do on executing that plan. But so far it's, you know, it's coming along. I had to scroll down, etc., etc. It's a Stoney Creek. I knew, you know, as opposed to things where it's big blocks of colors, right, which go much faster. It's a Stoney Creek, so the progress is what the progress is. But the best part for me, again, and I say this on most of the ones, the best part is this chart that has been languishing in my stash for 20-25 years. I'm finally working on it. I'm finally getting it started and getting it going. And so that's the, for me, that's the really exciting part about that whole episode. All right. Now, there they are. I was like, I thought I had these out, but they're of course not quite where they're supposed to be. All right. So then I did spend a little bit of time on my temperature tree. I took it off the Q-snaps this week for fun. So all right, so here's my infamous temperature tree by the Stitchin' Mommy, and I'm still gonna say I love stitching this thing. And again, it's a little bit of my reward after I do finicky stitching on Stoney Creek. It's so nice to sit down with this because it's, you know, it's much easier stitching. So I finished off my April branch and in fact got a good chunk of May. So the May branch is not finished, so it actually goes out even further. And then I started working on the leaves here. So again, those yellows are starting to come out. So yellow for me means above plus 15 degrees Celsius. I'm pretty sure that's correct. Like plus 15 to plus just under 21 are, is that right? I think so. Anyway, so those are, so there's a little more yellow creeping in. I have not finished all of the April leaves. There's a couple of new colors yet to come. But while I had some of the colors out, and since I had a decent start on the May branch, I filled in a few. So I actually have about 5 days of May stitched in here. even though I haven't completed April. And I always have a good chuckle because here's May 1 over, here's May 1 and here's May 2. It'll make sense at the end. So yeah, it's gonna get interesting because we're getting into the warmer temperatures. It's really nice that there aren't any aquas up here. It's not to say, I haven't looked ahead to see in May whether there's any aqua, because there could be. But happy with how this is coming along. And again, now that I've decided I'm going to do a second one on my list of things that I need to get, I was debating whether I was going to fill this in with a salt, continue with what I'm currently using, or whether I was going to try to find something more variegated. I've decided I'm just going to stick with it being a solid, and I'm going to use the same thing for when I do tree number 2. So that's the decision on that one. Again, love how this is coming together. Love stitching on it. Anyway, like I say, that's my reward after I do finicky. We have some fluff on that. All right, so that really is all the stitching that I've accomplished this week. But I do have some stash to show. All right, so I will start off with the unusual one first. So this is called Be Thankful by Misty Hill Studio. Now, I saw this on a post, somebody else was working on it, and I went, I really like this. Actually, I have to read it before I hold it up because I can't read it in reverse. It says, for each new morning with its light, for rest and shelter of the night, for health and food, for love and friends, for everything thy goodness sends. So it's very Thanksgiving-y, which I like. Now, it's me. Of course, I'm going to have to change the color of the fabric. I'm going to have to change a lot of the colors in here. But when I was looking for this, I was having a really, really hard time finding it. I couldn't find it listed on anybody's website. I couldn't find it anywhere to buy. I couldn't find it listed at distributors, websites that I know to check. I couldn't find it anywhere. So I actually, I think I sent her a message on Facebook and said, I'm looking for this chart. Can you tell me where I can get it? Who's got it? Blah, 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 etc., etc. So she sent me a message back and said, I'm happy to sell it to you. I can sell it directly. I can sell it to you as a PDF, or I can sell it to you as a paper copy. So I did PDF because it saves everybody the shipping, and it makes it easier for people like me who is an international shopper. So I got it as a PDF. So she sent me a PayPal invoice. I paid it, and it was immediately sent out to me, which was great. So I have it now. Again, this is not in the 5-year plan, but again, it was one of those ones where I like it, and since I was having difficulty finding it, I was like, just if you can get it, get it. Now, interestingly, when she sent me the PDF, she said, the Be Thankful here is stitched, the called for fiber is a Gentle Arts wheat fields. She said, however, in retrospect, after the model had been stitched, she didn't really like it as much, and she really recommended Gentle Arts Butter Crunch as being the better fiber for that. Now, it's me. I'm going to change the fabric. I'm going to change the colors and all that kind of stuff, so it's going to be something else. But, so yeah, it was great. And again, it comes up periodically where, you know, if you're struggling with something, if the designer has a website, or a Facebook group, or is on Instagram, if you're having difficulties finding their chart, they're usually really, really nice people. And if you're interested in one of those, usually I find, or certainly the ones that I've reached out to, are more than willing to help you find the chart of your choice. So whether it's directly from them, or if they point you to where you can get it, or who they know that they're selling their stuff to, yeah, that's great. So that's come into the stash. Actually, that just made me think something going like, it might end up in the 5-year plan. But anyway, don't forget, we're almost through the first year of the 5-year plan. So we're going to have to go through a whole planning thing to keep the 5-year plan going. You know, we know that's coming along. Okay. Now, no, I don't want to do that. All right. So fabric, I got a piece of, because I've been looking at my 5-year plan. I was looking at one piece and was going, I don't have a fabric for that particular one, and I know that I don't want to do the called for. So what I've ended up choosing is, so this is Vintage Stormy Clouds. This is a 32 count Lugana. So this is one of those, let's do this. I've got the weird lighting going on again. And I think the way that I'm going to stitch it is actually, I'm going to have the pattern going this way. So I got a wide quarter. I was actually hoping it was going to fit on a wide 1/8, and it doesn't. So it's a long, narrow pattern. So anyway, so it'll give me a decent chunk of leftover for that. But I did the floss toss and all that kind of stuff, and I think this is just going to work out perfectly. So I'm quite happy with this particular choice. So this is getting ready to go into the bag with that particular project, which is now going to be fully kitted up. All right. So there's that. Let's do some fibers. Okay. So last week, so some of this ties directly into last week. So I showed that Paris chart, and it calls for 1 soie d'Alger. So it's a navy soie d'Alger. So I'm always partial to that. So it's soie d'Alger 1436. So I picked up a skein of that again, so that can go, clouding over just nicely. Ooh, that'll help. Sort of. So I also picked up, so for the Gingerbread Valley ones I was talking about using Etoile. So I picked up another skein of Etoile in the white. Now, when you buy it, it looks very, very gray. I don't think that's my best white piece of paper to show that against. Let's try this one. Right? So it looks quite gray when you get it. I've had many people assure me, both virtually as well as one in real life, who said when you actually start to stitch with this, don't worry, it really does come out as white. And that the reason why it looks gray when it's skeined up like this is the metallic in it is making it look great. But when you stitch with it, it really does look like white, so not to worry. So I already had one, so I picked up another one just because I'm planning on using so much of it in those 2 Gingerbread Valley charts. And then I looked at a couple of the other colors. So 318 is used, so I picked up the Etoile of that and just went, we'll see when we get to stitching that whether I want to use Etoile or whether or not I want to use regular. Picked up $37.99 because I think this is used in that one where it's got the elf pushing the sleigh, that $37.99 is the runners on the sleigh. So again, in my head I went, if you just change that to an Etoile, it'll give it a little bit of a sparkle. And then this is $4.33. Now there's quite a bit of $4.34 or $4.35, which is also used in that design to sort of come up with the gingerbread pattern in the house. Now, in that color range, this is the only color that comes in Etoile. So I figured while I was picking it up, I would just get it. And again, when I go to stitch that, I will decide at that point in time whether or not I'm using regular DMC or whether I'm going to use the Etoile. Because I didn't bother looking that closely at the chart to go where exactly in the house is it being used. We'll make that decision when we get there. So these are specifically going into the project bag that has the Gingerbread Valley, those 2 charts from last week. Okay. Actually, Actually, I'm going to start mixing these up. Okay, so from a chart perspective, this is my Needlework Expo haul chart. So I was very well behaved from a Needlework Expo haul perspective. I did top it up with a couple of other charts that I had seen. So one, I don't, as far as I know, and Alma hasn't said anything, I don't think anything is necessarily happening to Blackbird Designs anytime imminently. But as we all know, some of these charts go out of print, and when they get released or when they get released in a book, and all of that is up in the air, and certainly I would say it's more up in the air now until we hear further. So there were a couple of them that I had seen projects of that were kind of on my, maybe you should get these, and so I ordered them and they came in. I do know that that several of the distributors are out of quite a few, because not surprisingly, since Barb passed away, that there's been a fairly decent run on people going, oh my goodness, I need all the Blackbirds. I've done reasonably well about holding back, but there's been quite a bit of run on things. So as far as I know, nothing has officially gone out of print, so don't quote me. Don't quote me. As far as I know, nothing has officially gone out of print, but I think there's a little bit of delay because there's been this big run on Blackbird charts. So without further ado, so I picked up Easter Parade, which I know this doesn't look like a typical Judy project, but there's a very, again, I saw somebody stitching this on something quite different, and I went, oh my goodness, that would actually look really fantastic. I have a plan for that. So I got it. And then same thing, this is the dangers of Facebook and Instagram and all those kinds of things, is because these people show things, right? And then you go, okay, well, I need that. So this is my friend's house. The ornament of a house is the friends who frequent it. I'm having a moment going, I don't think I did this last week, but if it's a repeat, it's a repeat. I still love it. And again, so this is a few color changes to go in here and all that kind of stuff. But again, I saw a picture of this, of what somebody else had done, and went, I really love that. So I need that now. So I got that. This is the one that I got because this is a little bit of a laugh about the organization. So according to my app, I have this chart. It's in my 5-year stitching plan. So heads up when we play that game about guess what my project is. Here's somewhere over the next 5 years. This is in the 5-year stitching plan. And as I said, I was playing in my stash. I couldn't find it to save my life. I couldn't find it anywhere. Anyway, but it's in my 5-year stitching plan, and I really do want to stitch it. So clearly, I ended up buying it again. So if when I do some of my year-end inventory, if I somehow stumble across it again, there might be a giveaway on this one. So this is from Cottage Garden Samplings, Have Faith. And while I was doing that, because it's in the 5-year stitching plan, I was looking at the called for fibers for this. And the really surprising thing to me, so it's all weeks dye works, I was actually short. I didn't have quite a few of the blues that are called for in this. So I had a little bit of a Weeks Dye Works blue run. So I got, actually let's do alphabetically because I'll be able to remember them. So I got, this is Americana, this is Blue Jeans, and this is Sky. Now all of those are called for in that Have Faith chart. I feel like there's one more. Deep Sea. Deep Sea is also called for, but I think I already have that one. So I got the blues that I was missing. For one of my other projects, I was looking at some stuff for December, and I was thinking I was wanting to make a small change from a color perspective about what was called for. And so the one that I decided to go with is, this is Michael's Navy, also from Weeks Dye Works. So this is going to go into my December project bag. So there's that. Okay, before we actually get to technical expo haul, this is all going to be all over the map. So I did a little bit of shopping this week. So I did go to Michael's, and so people have been talking about that Michael's is now carrying anchor floss on spools. So it's the true 6-stranded floss, but it's being it's not skeined, it's on a spool. So where I live, the Michael's closest to me does not carry the anchor. And so where I am, there are only 2 Michael's in the city that carry the anchor on the spools. Neither which is necessarily imminently close to me, but since I was out running some errands this week, I was over by the other one, and I went, you're going to stop in and you're going to have a look at the anchor. And so 3 of the spools came home. So these are the spools that I got. This I got specifically because as some of you may know from some of the older videos, in my music room, the walls in there are magenta. So in case you haven't figured out, I don't like a neutral wall. Purple, anyway. I don't have beige walls in my house. Anyway, so in the music room, it's a magenta wall. So this is actually a pretty good color match for that. So I stood there, I looked at the spools that were available. They do not have all of the colors in the anchor range there, so you can't get it on everything. So I picked up this one, which actually, as I say, is a pretty good match for the color in the music room. And then I picked up these 2 because one of my other home projects has this particular fabric, and I was looking for colors that would go with this. So don't know if this is the final decision, but I'm adding it to the pile of things to contemplate. So those 3 spools came home. Okay. Now, so from Needlework Expo, I was relatively restrained. Hard to believe, I know, but I was relatively restrained. So this one, so from the Scarlet House, I got a Changed World. I love this one. I still need to do a couple of color changes in this, because this is black, so that's going to end up being navy and navy in the corners. So there are expected color changes to go along with this one. And I'm really glad I held off, because I was really contemplating getting the Scarlet House Seeking Refuge. And I've debated and debated and debated, and I looked at it and I waited and I debated and I waited. And now I'm glad that I waited, because between this one and Seeking Refuge, I like this one better. So I'm glad I held off on that purchase. I know, hard to believe I held off on a purchase, but I'm glad I held off on that purchase because I like this one better. And so that one came home. And then this one should come as no surprise to anybody, because I've been talking about it since June. So of course, I couldn't resist getting Joy Be Thine, because I love this. This is really stunning. Now, I got the chart only. I did not get the thread pack that goes with this. I love the design. I love how this works. I love this design. The colors used here are a little too, have too much of a yellow undertone for me. So they're more earth tones than I generally like. which I find in quite a lot of patterns. So I'm planning on changing the color palette. I'm planning on having it be similar, but I'm planning on changing the colors so that they have more of a blue undertone than a yellow undertone. So I haven't undertaken that process at all, because that's quite a bit of process to get that figured out. So I'm going to hold off on doing that until this actually sort of starts appearing in the stitching plan. It's not in the stitching plan yet. I have some other Jeanette Douglas's in the stitching plan, so this will have to wait its turn. But I love this chart. I go back and watch my interview with Jeanette. And I had seen it even before then. It's a stunning design. I really like it. So of course I had to get the chart. So that came home. Okay, and then also from Needlework Expo, I got, so this is from Hands On Design. And don't be, I think it's yes, don't be afraid to take whisks. Oh, I love that. So this is chart number 3. There's a series of 3 of this. I think she's calling it the kitchen counter series. I don't know, it doesn't say anything, but anyway, so there's a series of 3. This is chart number 3, and on each of those 3 designs you get a part of a 4th design, which is this measure up one. So part 1 gives you this top part, part 2 gives you this middle part, and part 3 gives you this bottom part. So I got this because I think it's hilarious. And we know that previously I had already acquired the first chart from this series, which is called Lick the Bowl, which is this one. Again, these two together, I just think they're fantastic. Chart number 3 is the one that says, I have a kitchen because it came with the house, which is not exactly my sentiment because I can't live without a kitchen. Anyway, but these two I think are hilarious. Love them, love them, love them. So then what happened this week is, so I was, again, so somewhere in social, whether it was on YouTube or Facebook or Instagram, I don't remember where it was, someone was commenting that, so someone really smart and fast and all that kind of stuff had bought this, stitched it, turned it into a fully finished object, and she had actually attached, I don't know whether she had attached a whisk to the outside of the frame or whatever it was that she had done, and she'd found this, smaller whisk that she could do this with, which I went, that's really great. And I think she got it from somewhere like, I don't know, I'm going to say Hobby Lobby, because it's wherever it was. I was like going, I live in Canada. Our selection of those types of products is dramatically different than what it is in the US. So I do hope all of you who live in the US are grateful for your ability to have access to that, because it's not so much here in Canada. And I know not everybody, I'm not close to all of those stores or whatever, but even if you had it shipped, it's much cheaper to ship within the US than it is to ship across an international border. Anyway, long story short, here we go. Anyway, so I went in my head, that sounds like a really fantastic finishing idea. The chances of me being able to find that here in Canada in a colorway that I'm going to enjoy, that will work with the colors of my house. Good luck with that, Judy. Like, it sounds like a really great idea, but it's not going to happen in your lifetime. So I was out running some errands, and I went into HomeSense, which I think is the Canadian equivalent of Home Goods. So it's all in that TJ Maxx family. Look what I found! It's a little set of a whisk, a slotted turner, and a spatula. Now, again, because it got sunny again just at the wrong point in time. What do I got? Where did my white thing go again? Oh, it's just a piece of paper. So this is So clearly aqua colored, more of a royal blue, and this spatula has the royal blue, the aqua, a light blue, a gray, and a white. So there's actually 5 colors in, not in the spatula, this is a whisk. So I now have these small, and again, so they're about the size of my hand. Anyway, so if you, I think I'd figured out what I'm aiming to do is I'm going to stitch these designs on a 28 count. I think she stitched them on a 32 or 36 because then it fits really nicely into like a 5x7 or a 4x, like they turn into smaller ones. So I'm going to take the count out. I'm going to do them on 28 count, and they're just going to look really lovely. You know, like I measured it out, I cut out a piece of paper and held it up and went perfect. So my plan is now I have to go to Michael's and I need to look for a square shadow box so that I can mount the piece, the stitching piece, and then do these. And so clearly the whisk is going to be for, don't be afraid to take whisks. I'm going to use the spatula for Life is Short, Lick the Bowl. And then I'm going to use the slotted turner. And again, this one's a little, I've still got to figure this one out because I've lost my designs here again. This one, it's going to be for this one. So whether I put it just straight across in the middle or whether I put it at the bottom, anyway, that's my plan, is that I will use the slotted turner for this, the bonus chart, of which I only have 2. I'm totally fine with that. I'm probably just going to stitch the top and use this one. So the one in the middle is conversions for pints and quarts, which I don't tend to use at all in what I do. Again, so check back later when this actually gets underway. But I know when I got Lick the Bowl that I said, you know, I think this is hilarious. This is not necessarily in my color palette, and when it comes time to stitch this, I'll figure out the color palette at that point in time. Now, she, not surprisingly, has kept a consistent color palette across the series. But now that I have these, oh, see, there's a good, see, there you go. So there's all these colors that I have embedded in this whisk. So there's 5 colors in there. That is my color palette, because this does go with my kitchen. That is my color palette for these 2 charts. So I was thrilled. I have my solution. I just need to go out and find the shadow boxes to make them work, make them square. I know exactly where I'm going to hang them, on the ends of the counters. I know. When exactly I'm actually going to do the stitching part has not been worked into the 5-year plan yet, which is why I also chuckled at the "you're so organized" and all that kind of stuff. It's like, because I feel like the plan's starting to change a bit, all for good reasons. And again, it's a plan. It's not the law. There's no rules. It's a plan. Plans always change. Anyway, so I was absolutely thrilled, and look at that spectacular, look at how expensive that was. I spent the $7 so rapidly. Anyway, now, did they have a lot of these? Of course not. In fact, the one that I was in, it had one. It was this one. So it came home because I knew I had no chance of ever doing this again. So I'm absolutely thrilled. And clearly, I think the timing for this might have to get bumped up because now I have a concrete plan of what it's going to be and look like and all that kind of stuff. So was very excited about this little junket because it solves, anyway, first of all, because I started the week going like, there's no chance you're ever going to be able to get anything like that up here in Canada, and look what I got. Okay, and last but not least, while I was off on that same junket, I got this picture frame. Because my plan is, so this is also from home since. Sorry, I just need to do a little bit of adjustment. I'm also not the fastest at this. Totally inexperienced. My plan is that this is what I'm going to use the frame for. Temperature tree. Now I'm not 100% convinced that this blue along here is necessarily the correct one. Oops, and it's starting to go. But I figured, again, just go get one of those sample pots. It would be very simple if all I had to do was just slightly paint out the trim on this. A little bit of painter's tape, one of those sample pots is enough to do this. And they actually had two. So because you know I'm planning on doing a second one, so I will be able to frame them the same. These frames were $15 Canadian, and I went, these are the perfect frames for the temperature tree, other than I may have to, and again, it really depends on the light. Sometimes it looks good, sometimes, this one I'm looking, see, it's not quite blue enough, it's a little too gray. So again, so I may end up painting over this, but again, it's just the edge on this, which would be a very simple painting job. Even I could do that. So was very happy about that. Anyway, so that's yeah, so it was that little excursion out there was very productive. 2 frames, my kitchen utensils, now I have a color palette. So on that perspective, it's been an awesome week. All right, and with that, let's get into the topic. So like I said at the very beginning, the fully finished object is not here. It has gone to my parents' place, but I did take a little bit of video of it, and I do have some pictures of it both at my own home as well as at my parents' place. So I'm hopefully, I haven't done it yet, but it will be coming. I've now cobbled it all in together into something, and I'm going to insert that little series of things here. Okay, so for the video of the never-ending nativity, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a close-up of each of the individual panels, and then I'm going to throw in a couple of pictures of all 5 of them put together in front of a couple of different fireplaces, one being my own and one being where its actual residence is going to be. So this is panel number 1, which is the shepherd boy. So here is panel number 2, also shepherds. This is the first panel moving from left to right, where that uses the beads. And again, given that this is being done on a 36 count linen, where those beads are, what was called for is that each of those beads was supposed to be 1 cross stitch done with 2 strands of blending filament. But dragging those 2 strands of blending filament behind would have shown through the fabric. And so they are attached with 1 strand of ecru DMC. The linen is a 36, I'm calling it a 36 count antique white linen. So that is panel number 2. And as you can see, it's framed right up to the very first beads there. So this is panel number 4, the wise men. So again, similarly to panel number 2, this one also used beads for those quite spaced out spots where the Krynic X's were supposed to be. A couple of changes in this one. So added those extra jewels for the two wise men, which were technically not called for. And then in the design of the, trying to figure it, to go pretty close. In the design of the wise men's coats, like so for this blue one with his tealy green cape, the pattern there was done with beads. So the called for is Krynic, but that was done with beads. And again, the large motifs here in the purple wise men, those are also done with beads. Now the gold, which in this particular, from what I can see, the gold in that in his purple cloak is showing up really well. So that is just done with Krynic. 2 strands of Krynic blending filament. And again, just those sort of larger motifs. Let me see if I can hold this while I do this. Right, so those are done with beads. And the design on the bottom of the cloak is done with Krynic cable in gold. So that is panel number 4. So this is panel number 5, the infamous Humphrey, the camel. This is the one that I moaned and whined and complained about the most. Tassels with a couple of different colors of Krynic ribbon. And then, now as always, it doesn't necessarily show up as well in a picture. So all of those bands toward the bottom of the camel's covering are all done with Krynic. So I did put my initials in the very last panel of this. I know it wasn't the one that was completed last, but I felt like they actually fit there the best. So there is panel number 5, Humphrey. And last but not least, this is panel number 3, the center panel, which is a combination of 2 charts, the Bethlehem Star and the Holy Family. The one that took me the longest. So again, I will just start at the top of the star. I showed it to somebody else and they went, I know I've seen it and I looked at what you were doing, but I had no idea the color gradations that there were at the top where the star is. So here's a close-up of the star. I was going to say pretty much all done with Krynic blending filament. Moving down to the right, there is the pink angel. Again, similarly, so those spots in her robe, cloak, gown, whatever you want to call it, those are done with Krynic. And again, the design on top of her skirt is done with Krynic to make that design pattern. and use the beads. Now, not surprisingly and interestingly, as my framer liked to say, she really liked the fact that there were a lot more than the closer you get to the angels and to the top of the star. And then they fade out. And so this is the part where on each side of the chart it says if you're doing both panels together that you take the design and then you add another 30 rows of stitching to those far right beams. Now I think when I was there originally dropping this off and we sort of lined it up, I probably lost a couple of those, which I was totally fine with, but it does mean it goes right to the edge of the frame. And then panning to the left, this is the aquamarine angel. Again, the concept is the same. Kreinik, changing out the beads. Beams right to the edge of the frame. Now that center star, of course the beam coming all the way down to the manger scene, is done entirely with 2 strands of Kreinik blending filament in, I would say, 4 or 5 different colors. When I was stitching it, I knew exactly, but I have managed to forget the exact details. There's the Holy Family, the crush with its hay. A shepherd over here to the left, and the donkey, which is one of my friend's favorites. It's always interesting to see, and apparently a gigantic hair. There we go. What everybody's favorite parts are. So I've got one friend whose favorite part is Humphrey the camel. I've got one friend whose favorite part is the donkey. My dad's favorite part is that purple wise man, much to my great surprise. My mom's favorite part is the camel. Panning over here. So here is the wise men. This actually gives you a decent look at this wise man over here. And so yeah, the entire border of that wise man's cloak is done in 5 different colors of Kreinik blending filament. So the cameras never do the Kreinik justice, so I'm even looking at it here going, at least you are getting some sparkle there, but in real life, it's even more glittery than what you can see there. I'll just pan back out. So there is the center panel. Finally finished, fully finished, framed with all of its friends. Now all it's doing is waiting for Christmas. Okay, so here are all 5 of the panels. They're actually not put together. I've just lined them up. This is in front of my fireplace, and I'm actually having to stand on the ottoman so that I can get enough distance to show what this looks like. I have not put the pins in again because I'm taking this over to my parents. But I always laugh because my dad has been quite concerned that this will not fit, that it's too big to fit in front of the fireplace. I have assured him it will fit in the fireplace. Now, this is in front of my fireplace. I'm feeling pretty confident that it means it will fit in front of their fireplace as well. But you'll see that in a minute. but there are all 5 lined up. And so yeah, that center panel again, the design size is 18.5 by 27. And it is, as far as I'm concerned, the final finishing size of all 5 panels put together is a fireplace screen. So again, I'm just going to do a slow pan across the 5 panels, working from left to right from the shepherds. I feel like in the screen that looks crooked, but it's not. It could just be the way that I've leaned it up against the fireplace. The center panel. The wise man and the angel. And Humphrey. And a close-up for Miss Kitty, because this is her favorite part. So there you go. Again, so this is in front of my fireplace. The next one you're going to see is the series in front of the fireplace at my parents', which is it's going to be its home. See, there's the poor mantle way up above it. But yeah, so there's the never-ending nativity. The stitching is complete. Gosh, I feel like this is going all crooked on me. It is complete, fully finished, framed. Again, this frame is not, you can't get this frame anymore, but on the Serendipity Designs website, they have put a link so that you can download the instructions with the measurements for this. I really do like all the angles on this. I'm very happy that a year ago in the summer, I went, no, you are probably going to finish this, so get the special frame. You know, even when I was working on it, I wasn't sure that the frame was still available. And again, I didn't check until, like I say, a year ago in the summer. I contacted them and said, it's on the website. Is it actually still available? The answer, of course, was yes. And it came really quickly, and I'm thrilled that I bought it. It is the perfect finishing piece for this. Now, come this Christmas, if we're allowed to have, you know, friends over for things, I do tend to, I'm hoping at the beginning of December I'll get to have my usual dessert party, and I have already asked my mother if I will be able to borrow this so that it can come and sit at my house for the day of the party, if it occurs. Again, depending on restrictions and what's happening with COVID. But there you go. I'm not going to get back up on the stool on the ottomans to show you all 5. But yeah, the never-ending nativity. Okay, so it was a very interesting experience taking it over to my parents' place. My dad has always been concerned that it was going to be too big to fit in front of the fireplace, and it fits. It absolutely fits. I don't know if you could tell from the picture, we didn't necessarily put the pins in because I knew it wasn't going to be living there until December. So we just kind of propped them up against the fireplace for that, and it fits. My dad was in charge of putting it up against the fireplace because I think he still was convinced it wasn't going to fit. I always knew it was going to fit because worst case scenario, it's got the hinges are the hinges that go both directions, so you just angle it. I wasn't worried about that. He was more concerned than I was. Anyway, but just straight up and across it fits, which is great. It's straight up and across it fits on mine as well. I think it actually looks better in front of my fireplace because I have two pot lights shining right down on that particular spot, so I think it actually looks a little bit better in mine than with the sconces. Now, the pictures at Mom and Dad's were taken at nighttime, so not necessarily the best lighting there, but that's when I took it over. Anyway, so yeah, they're all thrilled. She's got it. You know, the interesting thing, I don't know if I'd mentioned this before, is when I went to go pick it up from the framer, I took it to a framer who had actually framed these way back in the day when people were stitching them. So she'd previously framed these, and in some cases she had actually built the frame herself before the instructions came out, which I found interesting. So I did say to her, I was like, by the way, if you ever had to do it again, you might want to download the instructions yourself because they're now available about what those measurements are. I, of course, have them, as does Charlotte, even though we're not planning on stitching it again. Anyway, so those, yeah, anyway. So she'd done it before, all that kind of stuff. She did a really fantastic job. My parents and I were chatting about sort of lining them up, certainly where the bottom is, to make it look like it really is all one continuous piece. She did a fantastic job with that. You know, I gave her a couple of other framing challenges because mine had beads, which the original did not call for. And so in some instances, she'd framed right up to the beads. Still got the beads in there. So that was great. So she did an awesome, awesome job. When I went to pick it up, she also said she was a little concerned because we were putting the glass in. And when she was doing the measurements, it turned out that that frame, the specialty frame, is not square. So she was really concerned that she actually wasn't going to be able to cut the glass on all these different angles to get it to fit into the existing frame. But she did. She did. It's all fantastic. It's all great. Using the TrueView glass, it's fantastic. You can barely tell that there's glass on it, but it is fully protected. So my mom was thrilled about that. We've got UV protection, not that it's going to be sitting in the light, all of those things going on, because that thing is, you know, it has to last for everybody's lifetimes, let me tell you. Anyway, so it was very appreciated when it got sent over there. It was fun setting it up at my house. It was fun setting it up at Mom and Dad's house. I have said that if I'm able to host a small gathering for Christmas, could I borrow it? And she has said yes, I could borrow it if I have one. All depends on where we are with numbers and things like that. So no guarantees. There will come a day where we will be able to gather again more readily. So worst case scenario, whenever that comes, when I do my Christmas party, I'll be able to. She has said that I could borrow it for the Christmas party to show at my place. So that would be lovely too. Anyway, with that, I hope everybody has had a really great week. I hope you have found time to do some stitching. I hope everybody is staying safe and staying healthy. And I look forward to seeing you next week. Take care, guys.